Good morning, parents and students. Mr. Mendenhall here. We are here with day 2, lesson 2. Hopefully yesterday's lesson was able to go pretty smoothly for everybody. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and get day 2 started. So we're going to go ahead and start with our learning objectives today. As we get this set up, here we go. No, it's running a little bit slow for everybody today. All right, so what are we doing today? Well, just like yesterday, today we're going to be reading the text Hair-Pocalypse so that we can continue practicing how to explain how the illustrations add to what is said about the characters in the story. I will know you guys have it when you guys are able to create a list of 4 events from the story that show how the problem is getting worse. And I will know you guys have it when you are able to correctly answer 2 questions about the characters' feelings in the story. So like we always do, let's go ahead and break down our objective just a little bit more. So in yesterday's lesson, we started talking a little bit about this text called Hair-Pocalypse. And one of the things I wanted you guys to think about was, what type of text is this? Is this a nonfiction text, meaning it gives us information? Or is this a fiction text that is made up and maybe even tells us a story? Well, one of the things I hoped you guys thought about was the fact that this is a text that has characters, it has a setting, and it has some kind of big problem, right? So that is a big clue that tells us that this text might be fiction. And if this text is fiction, meaning there's a couple things we need to be thinking about while we're reading. Number 1, how are our characters acting and how are our characters feeling? And the second thing we need to think about is, why the heck was this story written? Like, why did the author want to write this particular story? So we need to be thinking about central message. Why was the story written in the first place? And so today, while we're reading this text, we're going to continue doing what we did yesterday, which is practicing using those illustrations, connecting it to the text to tell us a little bit more about our characters in the story. And we're going to practice that in just a second. And then, like this bottom part says, I will know you guys are able to do this when you guys are able to first create a list of 4 events from the story that show how the problem is getting worse. Now remember, if this is a fiction text, that means that this story has to have some kind of problem. Meaning, what you guys are going to have to do is, while you guys are reading your part today, you guys are going to start looking for 4 events from the story that show that the problem, Aiden's problem, is continuing to get worse. So keep an eye out for things like that while you're reading today. And the second thing you guys are going to have to do is correctly answer 2 quiz questions. Just like yesterday, you guys will have a short quiz at the end of the assignment, at the end of the lesson, to show me that you guys understand what's happening and can use the illustrations to match with the text. Sound good? If you need these directions repeated, go ahead and start the video over again. Without further ado, let's continue doing what we need to do. So, just like yesterday, one of the things you guys had to do was match the illustrations with the text to tell us a little bit more about the characters. Now I'm going to show you guys how I would do that. So what I have here is my document camera. I have my notebook here that I would use in class, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. You guys notice that this piece of paper is broken down into 3 sections. Our character, blank. We know that he or she is blank because in the text, blank. So, like our objective said, we need to be able to describe these characters using the illustrations and the text as well. So I'm going to show you guys how I would do that. Well, for starters, early on in the text, we were introduced to a character named Aiden Allen, right? Our character, Aiden Allen, let me move this up a little bit. There we go. We know that he or she is pretty messy and grubby, right? Because I think the text was calling him grubby as well. But we know as the readers, we know that Aiden is messy and grubby because in the text, it said his clothes were always wrinkled. Now, I put this in quotations because that's what the text actually said, meaning the text actually said that his clothes were always wrinkled. That's what the words told us. But we can also confirm that he is messy and grubby because in the illustration, we saw a huge mess on the floor. So we know that Aiden Allen is very messy and grubby because both the text and the illustrations kind of proved it. Okay, let's try another one. One of the questions on your quiz yesterday had to do with Aiden's father. Now, the text didn't tell us a whole lot about Aiden's father, but that doesn't mean we can't describe him, okay? So one of our characters is Aiden's father. Once again, the text didn't tell us a whole lot, but it's those little details in there that still tell us a whole lot about Aiden's dad as a whole. So one of the things that we saw, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, is the text said that dad looked up from his phone. That's probably the only thing the text has told us about Aiden's dad so far, is that dad looked up from his phone. But we also see in the illustration that he is on his phone, like when Aiden walks in with his problem, right? So we see him on his phone when Aiden walks down, and the text even said that dad looked up from his phone. I can use these clues here. I can use these clues here to kind of understand a little bit more about Aiden's father. And so that tells me, because of all these things, that Aiden's father, we know that he's always on his phone. That's a good clue that Aiden's father is usually on his phone when Aiden has a problem or when Aiden's trying to do something, right? So we can infer that Aiden's father is on his phone a lot. Now, we all know somebody like that. We all know somebody that is constantly glued to their phone. Their eyes are always on their phone, you know, doing whatever they need to do on their phone. And I'm guessing that Aiden's father is one of those people. So what we're going to do today is we are going to continue practicing that. We're going to continue practicing learning more about our characters based on what the illustrations show us and what the text shows us. Makes sense? So what we're going to do next is we are going to go back to our text, Hair-Pocalypse. We're going to pick up right where we left off yesterday, and we're going to continue learning a little bit more about our characters and how they respond to this problem. So once again, while you guys are reading, make sure you're looking for any details that tell us how the problem gets worse, and look for any details that can tell us a little bit more about any of the characters that we see. We're going to practice that. So, you guys ready? Okay. So this is where we left off yesterday. Aiden is having a huge problem with his hair. His hair is just so messy. His hair is just causing him this big problem. And one of the things that's happening is it knocked his cereal bowl over. Well, let's see what happens. On the bus, Aiden's hair tied itself into 3 bows. Aiden knew everyone was staring at him. He tried to pretend nothing was happening. Ooh, so let's pause right there for a second. Look at this little detail right here where it says he tried to pretend nothing was happening. To me, this tells me a lot about how Aiden's feeling. So if you look at the illustration here and you look at this detail, I'm guessing Aiden is not angry yet. I'm guessing he's not quite terrified yet, but he's a little bit worried because look at his face. He looks a little worried that his friends are going to start making fun of him, right? He tried to pretend nothing was happening. He didn't want to cause a scene. He didn't want to cause his friends to start turning around and start laughing at him because they're all staring at him right now. But I guess he didn't want his friends to start just pointing and laughing at him just yet. Now look at this kid right here. If you guys zoom in real closely, look at this kid who has that, like, those winced eyes, you know? So once again, the text doesn't really tell us a whole lot about this kid, but if we look closely at that illustration, we can understand so much about what that kid is like. We don't even know his name, but we do know this. We do know that this kid might make fun of people a lot because look at the way he's looking at Aiden. Look at those eyes. Look at his mouth. We get the idea that this kid, whoever he is, is probably going to start making fun of Aiden like pretty quickly, more so than anyone else. You see what I mean? See how we can use these illustrations to kind of tell a little bit more about our characters? Let's continue practicing that. Let's go to the next page. But at school, Connolly Benton spotted Aiden and his crazy hair right away. It had formed airplane wings on the sides of Aiden's head. There was no way Connolly would stay silent. "Look at Aiden Allen's hair," she shouted. "Stop doing this hair." So already I see one of the things that's causing Aiden to have a bigger problem. His hair is growing into different shapes at the wrong times and the wrong places. So that's one thing that's causing this problem to continue to get worse. But now let's pause for a second. Let me pull this bad boy back up. Remember this thing? Well, here we're introduced to a new character. Not Aiden. It's Connolly Benton, the little girl in Aiden's class. We have a new character named Connolly Benton here. And here's a couple things we saw her doing. The text was saying there was no way Connolly would stay silent. That's a clue that tells us a little bit more about Connolly as a character. We also see her in the illustration. We see her pointing, at Aiden. We see her pointing at Aiden. So the text was saying this about her. There was no way Connolly would stay silent. We also see her pointing at Aiden, meaning she's not just sitting down and observing what's happening. She's pointing at Aiden. She's a student in a class that is pointing at another student. So that tells me a lot about who she is. These clues that the text gives us tells us a lot about this character, Connolly Benton. So what I'm going to let you guys do, on your assignment, I'm going to post a question. I want you guys to tell me a little bit about Connolly Benton. What is she like? How does she act? You know? I want you guys to use these clues to kind of tell me a little bit more about Connolly Benton. That's going to be one of the things you guys are going to do on your assignment. Okay? So, let's go back to our text. So, this is where I am going to stop reading for now. Okay? I'm going to let you guys read the next part of the story. I'm going to have you guys read all the way to this page here, page 18. Once you guys are done reading page 18, I want you guys to stop, answer your questions, make your list of events in the story that caused the problem to get worse, and then answer the 2 questions on your quiz. Once you guys have done those things, you guys are good to go. So, once again, you guys are going to continue reading up until page 18. Once you guys get to page 18, you guys are going to answer your 2 questions on your assignment and then answer your 2 questions on the quiz. Once you guys have done those 2 things, you're good to go. If you had any questions, send me a message on Edsby, have your mom or dad send me a text on Google Voice. It's up to you guys. I am here to help if you need it. So without further ado, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.